Okay, good morning. Welcome to day 2 of the Champions for Young Children Symposium and our new and innovative virtual format. I hope we're being innovative. This morning for our featured talk, we have Amanda Clue from the National Inclusion Project, and she's going to be talking about the power of play and playing when you're socially distanced. So I am really excited about this content. I hope you are too. Before we get started, we have a few housekeeping items that we'd like to chat about to ensure you have the best experience. So this session is being recorded and will be hosted on our YouTube channel. And after the dust settles and we get everything set up, we'll send out a link to everyone who's registered to be able to access the YouTube recording if they'd like to. All of attendee microphones are muted and your videos are off. And if you have questions, feel free to use the Q&A box. We'll do our best to answer all the questions today. If we're not able to, we'll make sure to get back to you as soon as possible with more information. If you have other comments or resources, you can use the chat box for those. And we'll be keeping our eye on that throughout. Nicole has just posted a link for handouts. So if you would like to see a handout for the session, you can click there. As a reminder, if you sign up to receive childcare training credit and/or CEUs, you must view this live session in its entirety via the platform that you're currently on, which is great. You don't have to go anywhere else. And if you have any questions, you can reach out to us at scic@mailbox.sc.edu. And so without further ado, I'm going to have Dr. Amanda Clue go ahead and get started with her talk.
Thank you so much. I want to thank everyone for joining us today and participating in this conference, Reimagined. I am so excited to be part of the effort to continue to extend great services for young children, particularly children with diverse needs. So thank you so much for having me today. I'm going to spend some time walking through an overview of our time together to orient you to what it is that we're going to be thinking and learning and engaging about. But then I'll also introduce you to me and my work, and we will get rolling. What I'm going to ask everyone to do today, even though you are really just looking and listening in, is be willing to move with us. We in this presentation are going to be engaging in a variety of GUM activities, get up and move activities, in the same way that you would implement them in your classrooms with young children or in your homes with young children if you are engaging in virtual teaching or learning through family experiences as well. So every once in a while, when I ask you to move and groove with us, I would love for you to participate in that. Now, I can't see any of you or hear any of you. I'm just going to trust that you're all doing it. So I appreciate that. I can peek in on what it is that Heather and her team are doing, so I'm going to check to see that they're moving with us also, but it will give you a sense of what it is that we need to be thinking about as educators to keep kids playing during this time, as well as keep you moving around and give you some time to breathe a little heavy as well. So our session today, if you are in your handouts, we're on the introductory slide for the agenda, looks just like what it is that you see on the screen. We are going to start off with some meet and greet activities. Again, you're going to meet and greet with me, and then we're going to pretend that I'm meeting and greeting with you through some of the activities that we're doing. We will talk about the research and rationale of why it is that movement and play is so important for children, especially young children. We'll have a variety of try and apply activities that I will demonstrate some different techniques and tips and tools, and we'll think about how it is that you can apply them in your classrooms or in your homes. Then an opportunity to reflect and respond on what it is that you've learned today or questions that you might have, and some time at the end just to check in and connect with each other so that we can make sure that we can extend this beyond just this week's conference and today's presentation. So again, keep in mind that we are going to focus in on the framework of GUM, get up and move. Who am I? I am Dr. Amanda Clue. I am the Director of Inclusive Recreation Standards and Accreditation at the National Inclusion Project. What does that mean? Well, the National Inclusion Project, or what we call NIP, is a nonprofit organization that's committed to promoting recreation, social, and play experiences for kids of all abilities. We are a charity organization that partners with child cares, camps, after-school programs, community programs, church-based programs, you name it, to ensure that all children participate and all children belong. And we firmly believe in the power of play in building children's friendships, advancing their learning, and contributing to their physical health and wellness. So at NIP, I am part of a wonderful team who is committed to all things and anything inclusion. I joined the team only this past year. Prior to that, I was a board member for NIP and a college professor. I was an early childhood education and special education professor for a long time. For a long time before that, I was a special education and early childhood teacher. And I have the wonderful life experience of being a person who has a disability. I have cerebral palsy, and I'm old, so I went through school before we had supports and regulations and legislation in place to promote inclusive learning and play experiences with kids who weren't like me. I spent the better part of my early childhood and elementary school years in secluded learning environments, at many basements of churches and homes, because I did not have school opportunities available to me. When I started going to school, I was seen as different, and was taught and engaged with separately from other children. I, at that time, wasn't walking or talking in the same way that other children were. One of the early preschool experiences that my family had me in actually considered me to be a fire hazard and asked my parents to withdraw me from that program because they couldn't physically move me around if there were to be a fire drill or a safety issue. So then throughout my school years, we committed to, as a family, seeking out the opportunities that would bring me health and wellness and learning. And that often involved my brothers, who were only a year older and a year younger than I was, to carry me around from classroom to classroom. And when we would fight, or if we would argue in the way that siblings do, they would leave me places. So if we were arguing that morning, instead of taking me to the cafeteria for lunch, my brother would leave me in a classroom. And I would have to figure out how to get to where it is that I needed to go because I'm using crutches and walkers and wheelchairs. So as the opportunities available to me through special education laws were passed, and the Americans with Disabilities Act was passed, I started seeking out other opportunities to learn and play, and then took it upon myself as an individual and as a member of a family to grow and to thrive, no matter what it is that the environment and situation presented to me. So I wanted to become a teacher to ensure that all kids would have an opportunity to experience play and interaction and learning together, and that their needs would be attended to instead of ignored. So that's who I am and how it is that I came to do the work that I do. I am very much a get down and dirty and move around and get into it kind of teacher. So teaching in this framework is very different for me. So I appreciate your grace as we navigate the virtual environment here. And we're going to jump into one of our first activities. So when you are encouraging GUM activities in your classroom, whether it's a physical classroom or it's engaging with kiddos who are learning at home, there are 100 different opportunities to weave in movement and play throughout the day. So the goal is not to wait for designated play times like outside time or recess or PE, but to integrate different play and movement activities into your classroom. And as teachers of young children, that's just a natural part of how kids learn, right? It's developmentally appropriate practice, it's enriching, it's engaging, it provides so much stimulation for them. One thing that you can do is by including it as part of your daily introduction and sort of morning meeting activities. So to get to know each other today, we're going to do an activity called Dancing DJs and Still Statues. And that's exactly what it is that the movements are that we're going to do. I will present to you, my class, a characteristic. And if that characteristic applies to you, you are going to dance around like a DJ. Dance up and down, move around, dance here and there, move all around like a DJ if that characteristic applies to you. If it doesn't apply to you, you're going to sit or stand still like a statue. Okay, you can strike a pose, but you're going to stay very still. Now you can dance like a DJ or be still like a statue sitting down. You can do it standing up, or you can do it on the floor. There is no limit to how it is that you can show me this movement. Okay, so I'm going to present a characteristic to you to get to know you as my class a little bit better. And if this characteristic applies to you, you're going to dance like a DJ. If this characteristic doesn't apply to you, you're going to stay still like a statue. All right, listening ears on. Who here has a pet? If you have a pet, let me see you dance like a DJ. I have a pet. Dance like a DJ. Oh, I see a couple of folks there who are still like a statue, so that means that they do not have pets. Joanna, I see that you are dancing like a DJ. Tell me about your pet, sweetheart. And Joanna would tell me about her pet. Okay, now everybody freeze. And let's move on to the next one. Think, think, think. Everybody stop. Awesome job. This time you are going to dance like a DJ if you have brown eyes. If you have brown eyes, dance like a DJ, dance like a DJ. Awesome job. Jonathan, I see you still like a statue. Way to go, Jonathan. Good job. What color are your eyes, babe? Let me see your eyes. Oh, they aren't brown, they are blue. Great job. Good work. So you see in this kind of activity, it's already a way to get kids moving around. And you can prompt and cue them to whatever kind of movements it is that you want them to do. They can use props, lots of props here that we're going to use today for our movement activities. They can just use their bodies. On the screen, if you are watching your class or viewing your class, you need to make sure that as a teacher, you're still using names. You're calling out the names of those students, you're connecting with them, you're showing them that you're paying attention to them, even if you can't see them. If you're doing this in your classroom, there doesn't need to be any touch for this activity, right? So how do kids know where it is that their space is to dance like a DJ or stay still like a statue? In all of the gum activities that we're going to be doing, designating space is super easy and super important. Painter's tape, everybody's best friend for lots of things. We'll talk about different ideas. Spot dots, dancing dots, or even circles of construction paper, images or designators that you want to put on the floor where it is that students need to go to do their movement or stay in their area. The really cool thing about things like spot dots or circles of paper or colored paper that you laminate is that you can decorate and color on or write on these with any information that links to your learning activities for that day also. So it can be different color names. It can be multiplication facts if you're in upper elementary. It can be vocabulary words. It can be key pictures for environmental print. You can use those as ways to orient your kids to everybody go to blue. Or your word of the day today, Amanda, is dog, and they find their spot dot or find their area that's labeled with that and use that as their movement space. So thank you for everybody that actually did participate in our dancing or our still statues. And you create question banks for these or characteristic lists for these kinds of activities, and just use them over and over again. Keep them on index cards for whatever it is that you want to use as those prompts for these kinds of activities. I've had times where it is that I've used them for lunch counts in the morning for who it is that was getting which menu item or who was carpool that day versus who was going to aftercare. 100 different things that you can do just to get kids moving and a time to transition into their learning activities for the day. So it was good to vicariously meet everybody. We're going to go ahead and jump into some content. So why do we do this? Why do we integrate play into our classroom experiences? Well, first and foremost, we know that it's important, especially for early childhood learning, right? But why physical play? Why some kind of movement or activity? Why gum? Why get up and move with our kids? Well, we know that movement leads to learning. There's a key kinesthetic link to how it is that kids explore and interact with the world around them to how it is that they take in and use information, right? Movement also leads to health, okay? Breathing hard and getting huffy and puffy helps us to develop our own physical wellness and physical health. Movement also creates opportunities for engagement, not only engagement with ourselves and how it is that our body works and things feel, but engagement with our environment and things, and engagement with each other. Even when we are physically separated or physically distanced, moving together creates community. For many of us at home who are athletes who work out, right, we've had to engage virtually with different workouts and different fitness experiences. What we found is that the community experience, the connection is still there because you're moving together, right? You have that opportunity. That's one of the reasons why Peloton is such a successful business, is because there is a connection between movement. Why it is that folks dance and appreciate the interaction and connection with dance is because it engages us. Why else do we do it? Because kids aren't moving. We know that to be a fact for all children of all ages, is that obesity rates are on the rise and children's health problems are skyrocketing because kids don't move during their day. Why? Because they spend most of their day in schools or in schooling environments where it is that they don't have an opportunity to move unless it's designated time like PE or playtime like recess. And even then, research has found that that doesn't happen often enough and that kids still aren't moving actively during those times, certainly not during typical classroom instruction. So we have a responsibility of integrating it into our work with kids, especially kids with disabilities. Children with disabilities have the highest obesity rate of all children in the United States. Children with disabilities participate in organized sport or after-school play experiences least often. Children with disabilities often have comorbid conditions that make people believe that they can't move around or it's not safe for them to play because they play differently or engage with the world in different ways. If movement improves learning, if movement improves health, and if movement improves engagement, then it has to be as important as any academic, intellectual, or social skill that we teach our kids, especially our kids with special needs. So we're going to spend some time walking through how it is that you do this with your kiddos. I want you to think about the importance of how it is that we structure instruction in our classrooms. Now, this is universal beyond gum and movement activities. This is just best instructional practice when you have kids in your classrooms who have a variety of learning, communication, and engagement needs. Using visuals can be particularly important for many kids. Things like visual schedules, where it is that you have the name of an activity as well as an icon or a picture of that activity of what it is that you're going to do, right? That's super, super helpful in classrooms where it is that we're socially distanced or physically distanced, because you may not be able to draw everyone's attention to the words on your screen or the words on your board, especially if you're teaching through a computer screen, right? Or your kids are spread out all across the room. But you can give them a visual cue as a reminder of, this is what we're going to do in our activity. So when it is that you are structuring your instruction, think about it in the same way that you would as a learner. The components to get up and move activities mirror that of what it is that we would want to be instruction in general. You're going to use direct instruction, where you're going to be directly modeling and engaging for your students what you want them to do. You're going to use signals and cues of when it is that you want them to do something or when it is that you want them to stop. You're going to set ground rules of what the movement is that you want them to do. You're going to transition them into and transition them out of that activity. And you're going to set up your space and your tools, your stuff, to be able to meet their needs as well as your needs as the teacher. And this happens regardless of whether you're teaching through a screen or whether you're teaching in the classroom space. So let's spend some time talking about how it is that you can do this. We already talked about using visuals as an initial cue to aid your instruction. Let's spend a little bit of time talking about what direct instruction is. Direct instruction often gets a bad rap, and it shouldn't. It is actually one of the most successful ways to reach all learners in your classroom. And there are ways to integrate direct instruction with inquiry and creative instruction in your classroom as well. Direct instruction simply outlines the framework of what you're going to do. It focuses in on I do, where the teacher or the instructor models for the kids what it is that the activity is. This is particularly important in movement, okay, so that you can show them what it is that's expected. Okay, so I do, then we do. This is the guided practice part, where it is that I'm going to do it with you. Okay, we're going to do it together. For some children, that may be hand over hand support. That may be moving with them or sometimes for them. Okay. And for others, it's simply that connection, knowing that the teacher is giving them that attention and support. And then you do. You have a chance to do it on your own, to apply it independently, do the activity yourself, okay, so that you can apply the skill, but I also can assess your learning. So that's all direct instruction is. It's I do, we do, you do. I model it, we do guided practice, then we do application or independent work. Okay? So that's the framework that we're going to use for all of our GUM activities that we're going to engage in now, or that you're going to put into practice in your classroom. Signals and cues. Visuals, like I said, visuals can be super, super important in your classroom, especially when kids are physically distant, because they may not be able to hear your voice or catch your sight line. Okay. And it's also just really good universal design. Okay. So having signals in your classrooms, like for when it is that you want them to start an activity, when you want them to go, right? Also, when it is that you want them to stop. Yeah. Putting these on puppet sticks or popsicle sticks is really, really helpful, because then you can carry them around the room to the kids rather than having the kids move around. Also super helpful when you're teaching virtually, because all kids may not be viewing the screen in the same way at all times, right? If you've ever been on a Google Meet or a Zoom with an elementary school or an early childhood class, most of the class is spent with people saying, hi, hey, getting really close to the camera, etc. So using visuals of when it is that you want your kids to stop an activity is really, really important. or when it is that you want them to start so that they know when their work time is. Or starting to transition them into when it is that you're going to change activities, or you're going to give them think time, and how it is that you want them to progress. Whatever way or variety of visual cues or visual signals that you want to put into your instruction, go for it. You see that I have some very adult learner oriented visuals in this presentation, but a variety of kid visuals is super important as well. Verbal cues, cueing your students with actual verbal directions. That is very important in how it is that you orient kids to language, and what it is that you want to build in terms of sort of those school-based learning skills that they'll have. Remember, one of the key factors for early reading success is talk. Talk and dialogue and discuss and converse with your kids. The more talk we have between young children and adults, and more sophisticated conversations that we have with them, the better readers they are later. So using verbal instruction is really important as well. Nonverbal things, so physical or tactile cues, what you want to show them. What do we love as early childhood educators? Sign language, super important. Also really important universal skill that you can incorporate into your instruction overall for children who communicate differently or have different sensory needs. Right? So teach them certain signals. When it is that you want them to listen to you, okay? When you want them to think, right? When you want them to be quiet, okay? When you want them to respond, right? Okay. If you want them to wait, whatever cues work for you in your classroom, teach it to them so that they know, when I'm talking, and it's also really useful on screen, right? It's your time to listen. So when it's your turn, I'll cue you, I'll signal you. I will do something or touch something or show something. Auditory cues, things like bells, right? Different kinds of music, different tones. Often really helpful in the classroom to have a variety of different music going. If you want kids to move fast, have fast moving music. If you want kids to calm, have slow playing music, right? Vary the tone and pitch and type of your voice so that you would be amazed to see how quickly kids come to attend if you whisper, right? Or if you signal to them that you want them to get down and get quiet. And use combinations of all of these with your kiddos. You'll see in some of the activities that I will vary them as we move forward, right? Really important, because you're going to be having kids move around, that you set ground rules. Okay? Use kid-friendly language, things that they'll understand. Okay? Don't make them complicated. We were talking before this presentation that trying to do things in a fancy way usually blows up in our face, right? So keep it simple. The simplest things are often the most magical in your classroom. Okay? So use kid-friendly language. Keep the ground rules clear and consistent. Focus on what you do want the kiddos to do, not what you don't want them to do. They figure that out on their own. There's no reason for us to model that. Okay. And practice and reinforce these over and over and over again. Super, super important when we're talking about movement, because they're going to be using stuff, right? Like dancing scarves. Okay. Most of you probably look at this and you're going to say, oh, we want to tell kids, don't put it around your neck, right? Well, what's the first thing that they're going to do when you say that? Put it around their neck, even if they haven't thought about it, right? You want to model for them, okay, today we're going to be using our dancing scarves. We're going to be using our dancing scarves by wiggling it in front of our body, right? We're going to wiggle it in front of our body, just like this. Show me. Show me all the different ways you can wiggle it in front of your body. Oh, good job. Way to go. I hadn't thought of that. That was awesome, Alicia. Nice work. So you want to practice, practice, practice with them what the expectations are. Ramp up and re-entry. Always think about how are we going to get into the activity, then how are we going to get through it, how are we going to do it, and how will we get away from it. Okay. The best instruction is not necessarily built on the instruction itself. It's built on how it is that we equip and transition kids in and out of those experiences, right? Because then we can really focus in on that instructional time or that activity. So if we put in good transitions, then the instruction can thrive on its own. It's not so much management, it's actually learning time, right? So decide how it is that you're going to get your kids ready to move, what you want to see of them when they are moving, and how it is that you're going to slow them down and gather them back from movement. Space and stuff. Okay. Virtually and at home, use anything and everything that's in your environment to promote movement, space. One of the reasons why it is that we don't see a lot of movement happening in classrooms is because there isn't the space for it, right? There's a lot of stuff in classrooms. I think it's really exciting now that we're going back under different protocols for physical distancing in classrooms, that we have an opportunity to spread out and create more space for kids. Okay. We have to, right? In order to be 6 feet apart or have different learning pods, we have to have more space. More space gives us more place to do things. It gives us a place to move around and move within a safe area, whereas before we may have been crowded in by a bunch of toys, tables, or desks. At home, create a space where it is that kids have the space to be able to move around. If you have children who move around seated because they use a wheelchair or they do their best learning or interaction from a seated or a floor position, there are lots of ways that you can move and groove seated and not standing. There is no reason why it is that in order to be mobile, to move around, we have to do so standing on 2 legs and walking. There are 100 different ways that we can reconceive what it is that movement is. Again, create space designations for your kids or give them the materials that do so. And some tools and tips and tricks. Some of the things that you want to think about having on hand. Again, we talked about tape, have lots of tape. Super, super helpful. Spot dots, if you are a PE or a dance teacher, you know what these are. If you don't want to buy them or can't buy them, laminating circles of construction paper works just as well. Also labeling spot dots for different types of activities. For example, I have one here that's the run dot. When you get to this dot, or if this dot is handed to you, you run in place, run and run and run, run and run and run. If you're seated, you can run this way. If you're standing, you can run this way. Okay. So that's what it is that you know that you do if you're at the run spot. Or again, add learning materials or learning goals to these. Great tip, if you use dry erase marker, you can put these in the dishwasher and they come out perfectly clean. It's amazing. That way you can do dozens of them at a time. Other great things. Lots of us have these at home. Okay. Lots of us have these in our classrooms for different floor work and carpet area spaces. The really cool thing about these is the chalk comes off of them beautifully. So you can label them with a variety of activities, words, or learning skills, and it just comes off if you write on them with chalk. Create huge tic-tac-toe boards on your walls using painter's tape. Okay. Have kids, throw balls and bean bags. Create bean bags with old socks and rice. Lots of different things that you can do for that. Use tape on the floor to create massive bingo boards where kids have to jump from space to space. How many of you ever played Twister when you were little? I think it's still probably out there in stores. Use Twister boards for a variety of movement games. Make huge bingo boards. Do word identification activities. Use the game spinners that you have for things like Twister and Candyland as game spinners for your own movement games. Just relabel them. Lots and lots of ways to do this. dancing scarves, like I mentioned, a huge, huge plus for all kinds of movement. We're going to use this guy in a minute. Squishies, any kind of ball, anything that kids can manipulate in their hands, super, super, super useful. Throw, pat, squish, lots of different, here's a beanbag. Okay. Beanbags are great, especially for kids with sensory needs because they have weight to them. They're super comforting and very soothing for kids to use. Puppets. Okay. Some kids themselves are comfortable with movement, so they may be more comfortable moving a puppet, okay, or moving a doll or a teddy bear. And then, in fact, guess what? They're still moving. They just don't realize it. Balls, like I said, any size, any shape, any type of ball that your kids can use in the classroom. You can write different learning activities, skills, etc. on the balls. Again, if you use dry erase marker, it comes off beautifully. Yeah. All right, so want us to think about how it is then that we can consider adapting this instruction for kids. Again, many times you actually aren't going to need to, because when you think about the structure of instruction for the movement activities from that direct instruction, how do I use signals and cues, etc. In that framework, it's universally designed, so you don't necessarily need to adapt it for specific kids. But if you find that your attention goes to a student that may need to experience an activity differently, think about how it is that you can adapt that activity to create independent success for that child. There's nothing more devastating for the individual who has the disability or from the school experience for a child to always have to depend on another peer or an adult to do things for them or with them. Right? One of the old standards that we often use in classrooms is, oh, well, Amanda, you'll do this with a partner, or, you know, I'll do this with you. Well, I want to have success in my learning experience too. I want to be able to do things independently and have those aha moments. So figuring out ways that you can maximize an individual student's opportunity to engage and succeed in an activity is super important. We'll talk about ways to do that in just a sec. Also things to think about as we're adapting. What's the activity and the goal? If the activity and the goal in the meet and greet activity was for me to get to know you better, as long as that is the goal and purpose of the activity, I don't care how it is that that happens, right? I've met that goal and the student has shown that they've met that goal. Design ways to maximize that student's strengths and successes. If we were doing that movement activity of dancing DJs and still statues when I was in elementary school, the dancing DJs part would have been easy for me because I move around a lot. I have spastic cerebral palsy, and so I get spasms. I move around a lot. Can I stand all of the time to do that? No. Could I then? Absolutely not. So I would do it seated, right? Do I still meet the goal of that activity? Yes. Okay. What's my strength? I love interacting with people. I love talking, teaching, and engaging, right? So maximize that opportunity in that activity for Amanda, right? Adapt or accommodate to minimize hurdles and struggles. In that activity, what would have been a struggle for me? The still statue part. It's hard for me to stay still. I have to move around, not only because of my particular disability, but just because of my personality and my needs, right? I sit still a lot at home. I need my school and my play space to be somewhere where it is that I move. So for my still statue, one of the things that would help me be still like a statue is give me something to hold, right? I can make a thing be still better than I can make my body calm and be still. So my still statue for that activity might have been this. right? Still shows you as the teacher those get to know me characteristics, still engages me in the movement, but it's adapted for my needs. Remember, everybody gets what it is that they need at different times. Provide positive behavior supports who show reinforcement. Use those cues of saying kids' names, showing them when it is that they're doing something well. Reinforce the behaviors that you want to see. Catch them being good. Ignore the behaviors that you don't and only intervene when you have to. The more we can reinforce what we do want kids to do, the more they do it. And then step back and think about what worked and what didn't. For many of you, that dancing DJs and still statues activities probably didn't work because I bet you didn't do it. And that's okay. For me as the instructor, I can step back and say, okay, next time what I'm going to ask everybody to do is enter into the chat what pose they struck or what music they danced to, or if they move their hands or move their feet, so that I can get some feedback from it. So always step back and reflect to see what it is that what worked and what didn't. If Amanda didn't benefit from the activity, then I need to come up with one later that she does. All right, so we're going to move around again. Let's gum around again. I'm going to show you just through this activity some of the ways that you can incorporate these things into your movement. So we're going to I'm going to move here so I have a little bit more space. All right, Heather and Nicole, yell out if you stop hearing me at any point so that I know to stop to get closer to the screen, okay? So we're going to do an activity called rubber chicken. And rubber chicken is exactly that. We're going to move our body around just like a rubber chicken. Now, as you move your body, you want to keep yourself in your space. Okay, I don't know if you can see here, a square of space where I'm going to do this movement. Okay. And I'm going to stay in this space, and I'm just going to be moving my hands and my feet. Now, it's hard for me to do this activity standing sometimes, so you can do this seated as well or even on the floor. Okay? So standing, seated, or lying down, totally up to you. Now, what we're going to do for rubber chicken is we are going to work on our counting. We're going to work on our counting out loud, so using our big, loud classroom voices, as well as our movement. We're going to shake our arms and our legs certain numbers of times so that we look like a rubber chicken. But what we're going to do is we're going to shake our right arm 16 times. We're going to shake our left arm 16 times. We're going to shake our right leg 16 times. We're going to shake our left leg 16 times. Then we're going to do 8, 8, 8, 8, 4, 4, 4, 4, 2, 2, 2, 2, 1, 1, 1, 1, and then just shake all around. We're going to stay in our spots. This rubber chicken is a great movement, of course, to use in math as you're working on factors and multiples, but it's also just a great tool as sort of a wiggle break for your students during the day. And you'll see why if you do this with me, and I hope you do. It is a great way to just get huffy and puffy in a very short amount of time. All right, so when I say rubber chicken, everyone is going to start, and I'm going to count with you. We're going to do 16, 16, 16, etc. Okay, I'll cue your numbers, and then once we start coming back together, I'll cue us to take some big, quiet, deep breaths and tell us when we're going to stop. All right, so everybody up with me. We're still. We're going to start rubber chicken in 3, 2, 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 16. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 16. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. Rabbit chicken. Rabbit chicken. And big deep breath in 3, 2, 1, and rest. All right, hopefully everybody moved around, got a little bit of movement in that activity. That's rubber chicken. Lots of ways that you can connect it to learning activities, or don't. Just use it for play and for movement. You can do it seated, right? You could do it standing. You can use props, all different ways that you can engage your kids in it. So, as we went through some of our thinking points today and our movement ideas today, I want you to think about in your questions any aha points that you touched on of like, oh my gosh, that's a light bulb moment for me. I hadn't thought about that. Any oh no points where you were, oh my gosh, that's a question I have or a concern that I have that I could help process for you. And any other questions or comments? I'm going to take a sip of water while Nicole lets me know what some of those questions or comments are. And we get over our huffy and puffiness a little bit. And then we'll do a cool down activity together. So let's see what we've got here. I have a question here. Are there resources and organizations that advocate for inclusion of adults in recreation as well? Awesome question. So National Inclusion Project focuses in on recreation and play experiences for kids, but there are organizations that cover sort of the lifespan or focus particularly on older adolescents and adults. If there is there a listserv maybe that I could send some of those links to for folks, or do you guys have a web resource page, Heather and Nicole, that I could share some of those links of some of those organizations nationally as well as some in the area here that folks might take a look at?
Yes, we absolutely can do that. We can, if you want to put it like on a handout, we can attach it with the other handouts for this session for today. Sorry guys, we have the PowerPoint. We're working on getting it up. So you guys will have that handout, but if there's others that you want me to add to that, I certainly can.
Sure, that sounds good. Would it be helpful if I try to share the PowerPoint directly into the chat as a file for folks?
Yes, you can if you want to, and then it'll be up on the website too.
Oh, if it's going to go up on the website, we'll just let folks to go ahead and do it that way. Yeah. Good. Other questions or comments? Any takeaways or ahas that folks had? I think I see some. Please, someone ask something. I feel like the teacher in Ferris Bueller's Day Off, where no one's saying anything. That ages me, doesn't it? That I know what Ferris Bueller's Day Off is.
We have a lot of comments that folks are really enjoying these resources, and well, I can't say everybody, but everybody that's commented has loved the rubber chicken. They think that's really fun.
Yay.
And a good workout.
Exactly. You know, I have adult students, college students that do it before and after exams as well. So it's all age appropriate. Is really useful for our kiddos. So if we don't have any explicit questions that I can offer, want to take a minute just to remind everyone of my contact info and National Inclusion Project info if you want to have more resources about things like movement or play activities, or again, any inclusion trainings or resources. I hope it comes across that I love what I do and we love what we do, so we'd be happy to support your efforts and your work in any way, either virtually or in person at a safe physical distance. So my contact info is amandaclue@inclusionproject.org. If you want to reach me on social media, I'm not very good at it. I'm just going to put that out there right now. But on Instagram, I am @.clue. And our National Inclusion Project information is inclusionproject.org. I believe that Nicole put that info for you in the chat to start as well. Our Facebook page is National Inclusion Project, and our Instagram is @includingkids. Take a second to, if you haven't already shared your contact information with each other, I certainly hope that you all have a chance to do that, because there's nothing better in the world as an educational resource than other educators. So please do make sure that you connect with me and connect with each other. I'd love to visit in on some of your classrooms if you are providing virtual teaching and to do some movement sessions or some inclusion support instructionally for you. So please stay connected. I want everybody, whether or not you're in a classroom or you're at home, to try one gum activity tomorrow. And you might be saying, well, what activity? How do I know what to do? It's just movement. It's ways to think about, if I create a giant tic-tac-toe board on my floor and jump from my X's to my O's, how can I make that fun for my kids? Or if you have paintbrushes at home and a bucket of water and you want kids to practice letter formation, it's just water. You can do it on your floor, you can do it on your windows, you can do it on your walls. Have them practice giant letter formation with paintbrushes and just water, no skin off anybody's nose, right? Lots of different ways that you can incorporate movement into what it is that you're doing. Pick something and try it tomorrow. If you do try it tomorrow, even if it's rubber chicken, tag me in it. Tag me in it and I will share and celebrate what you're doing, because educators save lives, and we're doing it even more now with what we're offering to kids, because remember, movement is learning, movement is health, movement is engagement. Super, super important. All right, one more activity before we wrap up. This one is called crocodile breathing and teddy bear hugs. If we need anything in today's world, it's headspace, right? It's strategies of how to center, how to calm, how to be able to create spaces where it is that we have a chance for just quiet, collected thought. And so teaching our kids how to crocodile breathe or do some big belly cleansing breaths is really important, and a great way also to calm your classroom down and bring everyone together, especially after activities like PE. And some of the ways that you can teach kids how to crocodile breathe is having them lie on the floor or lean back in their chair and give everyone a dancing scarf. Remember, don't share materials in your classroom, so everybody can have their own, or they can use their hands or any other classroom resource. Put it over their head. It also makes things look really cool. All right, here's my little crocodile. Here's my crocodile. We're gonna practice crocodile breathing. So that means everyone's gonna close their eyes. You're going to take a big breath in through your nose. And I want you to blow it out like you're blowing out birthday candles. I want to see that scarf flutter through the air, or I want to hear it hit your hand. Ready? Big breath in and blow. Blow out those birthday candles. Big breath in and out. and just practice that with your kids as a teacher, as an adult yourself, to be able to get that calming time. Same thing is true for just some centered stretch time. So lie on the floor with a favorite teddy bear or with a huggy or a lovey. Even just wrap your arms around yourself. Rock back and forth. Turn side to side. Stay in child's pose if you know what that is, if you do yoga. And just some time to hum or breathe or talk quietly to that lovey or that teddy bear to bring yourself right back to center. And then your kiddos will be ready for whatever it is that you are going to present to them next. Any other comments or questions that I can offer to answer for anyone? Again, stay in touch, stay connected. Amanda Clue at inclusionproject.org. Tag me on Instagram, ask me questions, contact NIP for whatever it is that we can do to support your work with kids. Just a reminder from all of us, a huge thank you for everything that you are doing. Remember that you're not alone. This is hard. Feel all the feels daily. Take a deep breath, give yourself grace, and stay connected. I'm so grateful for everything that you do and love those kids because they will love you back, and it's extraordinary. Thank you, Heather. Thanks, Nicole.
All right. Do you have that last slide?
Oh, yep. That one?
The last slide with the contact information?
Oh, I do. There you go. Yep.
Oh, there it is. Hey. So I am so excited that you guys joined us today, and we are getting multiple comments about how useful these strategies are going to be with your work with kids and families, and even some comments that just with their own families this will be helpful. And so we really appreciate Dr. Clue spending time with us today, and her enthusiasm for supporting kids and families during this time is really, really great. So if you have questions or feedback, please feel free to email us at scic@mailbox.sc.edu. And Nicole can put that up in the chat too, but it's also on the screen. We did record this session. We've had questions. Can I share this with my colleagues? Yes, you'll be able to share with your colleagues. The session is being recorded and will be posted on our YouTube channel. Please be patient. It's probably going to be sometime next week. We've got to, learn how to put stuff on a YouTube channel. But we'll get it up there and we'll let you guys know when it is. A special thank you too to our captioner who's been providing us with live captioning throughout the event. I noticed that some of you joined via phone. If you joined via phone, and if you want credit of any sort, you need to send an email to the email box that's on the screen. That's scic@mailbox.sc.edu with your name, the session you attended, and the phone number you attended the session with, so we can match you up with your registration to provide credit. I'm going to put a evaluation up on the screen, and we really love feedback from this conference, and we really do respond to that. So if everyone will take a minute, not even probably, to respond to the evaluation, that would be very helpful for us as we move into the future. And so we'll be waiting here too if there are other questions during this time. Amanda's here, she can answer those, or we can answer those from a champion's perspective. And Nicole wrote, please scroll down on the evaluation. There are 10 questions on the evaluation, so just scroll all the way down and answer all of them. They're easy because they're all strong. This should be all strongly agree.
There's a good cueing right there for you.
We have missed everybody not being able to be live and in person. And I think that, Amanda did a wonderful job helping us feel like we were together. even when we're not physically in the same space.
Yeah, it is. It's definitely something to really be attentive to as a teacher of how it is that you're going to try to find that for yourself, because that's very important for our own self-care as educators, but how it is that we can promote that in our kiddos and their families as well.
All right, we're at 72% with our evaluations. We like to go for 100%, so keep responding. The poll should have popped up in a window on your screen. If you're on a tablet or a phone, you might need to slide your screen over, which is not a technical way to say that, but that's all I have. Swipe. I think swipe is the thing.
Yeah, I knew exactly what you were describing. I found it very clear.
And I has a good suggestion too. You might have pop-ups blocked, so it might not have popped up for you.
I was going to suggest that as well. Is that check your pop-ups and cookie status. But if folks are calling in, if they're just doing auditory, the poll won't be available to them.
Yes. Yes, Tia, sometimes when we have our work equipment, our IT folks have disabled certain things. So maybe that is the case that your pop-up is not available. I apologize. %98 and climbing. You guys are amazing. I will say that we have 3 breakout sessions starting at 11:30. I hope that you guys have registered for those. We have some good content coming up with that. And this being our last day of Champions, I wish you guys all well as we transition back to whatever things are going to look like over the next several months. I think our one constant is this is how we're doing it now, but things could change. And I loved Amanda's last slide that just said, just hang in there, basically, just hang in there. We're all focused on ensuring that kids and families have what they need during this time, but we also need to remember that we need things too as helpers. So keeping that in mind is helpful as well. All right, we have made it to 100%, folks. You guys are amazing. Thank you so much for being with us today, and thanks again to Amanda. And hopefully I'll see some of you in the breakout sessions. All right, have a great day, folks.
Thanks, everybody. Stay well.